It was eerily calm this morning at 8 a.m. Not a single leaf was like even twitching at all from the wind. There was no wind. It was just a gray sky. But little tiny bit of wind now. Light rain off and on, probably throughout the night. And I guess the forecasts right now are saying Hurricane Milton is going to make landfall somewhere between 1 and 2 a.m. I've seen two different tracks, and the wind speed where we're at and gusts, are anywhere between 35 miles an hour and 60. Again, that's the predicted, and it's been up and down for days. But looking at, when it's going to hit us, or at least make landfall at 1 to 2 a.m. Thursday. Just 2 or 3 days ago, it was going to make landfall at 8 p.m. So you see that these storms can change direction or go faster or slower, and it can be way off the early predictions. You can see right there, that red maple, that's what hit our wheelchair ramp during Helene. And this red maple has broken 2 or 3 times or more during various storms, thunderstorms, hurricanes. It doesn't have much left to fall, although if the whole tree fell, it could still cause damage. But it looks like we may just have a full day and half of a night of just dreary weather, rain, light wind. I don't know, but I'm sure it's going to pick up sometime. Whether that's at 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. They've been talking, at least for the last 2 days, about a possible 15-foot storm surge somewhere around Sarasota, Tampa, and if it goes any further south, maybe even like Fort Myers area, Orlando's got a really bad warning, like central Florida, Last night they were talking about possible 12 inches of rain in areas. This morning they're talking about potentially 18 inches of rainfall in certain areas. So it's been a few hours later. Not really much has changed. A little bit of wind. It's getting pretty windy up in Jacksonville. And the news reporter, weather people said, that may not even be Milton at all. That might be just another tropical system nearby causing all that wind, because Milton's not really here yet. But I'm going to tell you guys a story about a cricket lawyer, a cricket land buyer, and how we bought and lost land in the very early 80s, 1980s, without ever getting to use a portion of that land. So, a long time ago, a lot of our swampland and stuff was used to run cattle on. One prominent lady owned a big portion of our town, our city, whatever it's classified as. Same thing to me, small town. And I guess as she got older, and I do remember as a kid seeing cattle on a lot of these places that now have either vacant or have some buildings or whatever occupied on. So her family left the city, I think the water tower, to the city many years ago for the residents, and she left almost all of her property other than that to the Baptist Association so that they could build their churches and stuff on it. After she passed away, her son which we're not going to name any names now. We may tell the whole story with all the names, the lawyer and everything, but her son had some of the property, and he was selling some of it. So there was a neighbor that had put a well on the side of his property that was not his. And when we went to buy this property, including that side property and property in the back of his property, which were, I guess, separate lots. If they were not separate, they were separated later. So we were promised to buy that land, and the guy, that was selling the property come to us and said, we did not know that Mr. X was had his well on this property. Can I separate this lot that you were going to buy and give that neighbor, sell it to the neighbor because he had his well on it? And my parents said, we don't want to be bad neighbors, so yes, go ahead and sell it to him. And this is swampland, mostly cheap land at the time. But when we bought that other lot, we realized that the neighbor had been using part of that lot, a 16 by 75 foot section. He had permission from the previous owner to use it for his garden. And when we tried to get the land back, he claimed adverse possession. He claimed that he put that fence there, that cattle fence from, that was probably, 100 years old there, 80 years, 60 years, I don't know, way before they bought the property and built the house there. I think in the late 40s. So there was this little 18 or 24 inch fence line that, because they run cattle everywhere. And that kind of was the cattle stop. So the neighbor filed a lawsuit against my parents, which were the newly rightful owners, and said, like I said, adverse possession. So adverse possession means that you fence a property in plain view, you're not hiding it. You put that fence up, you have it for 7 years plus, you put a garden there, whatever, and it has to be without permission. He had permission from the previous landowners, so it did not qualify for adverse possession. So my parents went to the local lawyer, which had a freaking, nobody knew this at the time, but the guy had, I think in the late 80s, had been arrested for 2 counts of major cocaine something. There was 15 or 16 other people indicted. I think he somehow got one of the charges dropped. He got convicted and sentenced to 7 years in prison. I don't know. He appealed it. I don't know what the outcome was. Did he spend any time in jail or not? But yeah, he was convicted. It's public knowledge. And almost any time someone hears this lawyer's name, small town lawyer, you wonder, why someone would stay here all their life versus going out into the big lawyer world or whatever realm. But, if they're doing crooked things and, just making enough money to have a big cocaine habit and cocaine parties, that's, lawyers get a bad rep anyway, but this guy was the classical 1980s narcotics lawyer, I guess. So when my parents went to this lawyer, and there wasn't many choices here. He said, the first problem you have is that your neighbors filed a lawsuit or complaint first. He told them, if you filed the lawsuit first, it would look better for you. It might be cheaper to fight it, and, things might be more likely to go your way. But give me $5,000 and we'll try our best to get that little property back for you. My father was a disabled veteran trying to raise 2 kids, and did not have $5,000. But even if he did, the value of the land at that time was probably only $100 to $200, probably less than $200, because the whole acre or whatever at the time sold for, I think, $2,000. So when my father said, I don't have that money, the land's not worth it, this lawyer said, okay, give me $500. We'll sign a paper saying that that neighbor can borrow it until they die or whatever. Of course, at the time, my parents trusted the lawyer. And gave them $500. Now, some or all of that might have went to pay the neighbor's legal expenses. I don't know, or if it went directly just to this lawyer. Or, it's very possible that they hired the same lawyer as my parents hired. That's the kind of crooked stuff, you hear about this guy. So, I'm sure like a legal paper title between early 80s and until like the death of a number of people, death certificates filed, probate and all that, there was nothing, I guess, that indicated that we didn't own the property, my parents. And supposedly they did not, even the neighbors did not file to have this land put in their name for many, many years, but they eventually did, we found out. So we thought we were paying taxes on the land and yada yada. So my parents were led to believe that they just signed paper saying that they were not going to push the, anything. They were not going to push the subject of this is our land, and when the neighbors died, we were going to get it back. But that's not what happened. That lawyer actually gave the neighbors that land, and nobody knew about it. And we've talked to surveyors, we talked to lawyers around here, we talked to real estate people, and when like I said, when that lawyer's name is mentioned, it doesn't surprise me. Everybody knows his name as a crook. This happens all the time, they said. This but yeah, they did not legally fall into the realm of adverse possession. It seemed like it was more like being poor or not thinking the land was worth $5,000. Just allowed the lawyer to take advantage of the situation, and it allowed the neighbors to get a free piece of property. Just stole it, and the guy died. He didn't live very much longer, I don't think. And the wife lived there until she was like 92, something like that. And she never offered the property back. And the daughter never offered the property back. She was here when that situation occurred. Her husband, I guess, told everybody, at the time, ex-husband, he's dead now too, you don't legally own that property. You're still in this property from these people. But again, now the property has sold and we don't get our property back. We were never in possession of it, but we paid for it. and they got it free. And these were supposedly really good Christians in the neighborhood. They, their church always was going to Guatemala or something and giving shoes away and doing, sending clothes to these places. And, I think a lot of people use religion, Christianity and stuff to sin, purposely sin 6 days out of the week, purposely do wrong, and then call that one day a week, Saturday or Sunday, depending on your faith, to say, okay, purge me all of my sins, Lord. I'm a good Christian. I'm doing all this stuff. Now you might say, well, could a low-income, attorney service or whatever help you? Well, since we did not live on that property, that lot, we didn't really qualify for any services. Like if you're in danger of being kicked out, you're living there, homesteading it or whatever, you may qualify for some free services. And that wasn't the case because we just bought the lot. We were attaching it to other lots. Now that crooked lawyer is dead. We can't go back and claim any kind of malfeasance or whatever with him. There's nothing we can do. No, I think a land investor probably bought that property, and they've been sending out letters trying to buy the rest of it back here. There's no right of way to the property that's back there, so it had to have been the same person that purchased that property, and they used a fake name and went through a different real estate company with that fake name to make an offer on the property. So they offered $15,000, and the market value was between $150 and $185. According to what I've seen. So they're not getting that. They're not going to be saying, okay, well, this looks like you were done wrong. You're going to get the property back. So it's probably permanently lost. And it's disappointing, but what can you do? I mean, it's 40 years later, 40 plus years later, it's going to affect, if I were going to leave this property to my kids and their grandkids, it could have an effect, for 50 or 60 or 70 years if my grandkids and my kids decide to stay here, work the farm, whatever, and just continue to improve the land and the resources here. 16 by 75 foot is big enough to put, a small house on. That just think about in that way. It doesn't look like a big piece of land, but you could put a 60-foot mobile home in that slot there, and use the existing land that we do legally own and put a septic tank or well or whatever there. So yeah, we could build a house, put a mobile home there or whatever. So that's something that's not going to happen or can't happen. Personally, I would have used it for the extra garden and space and for fruit trees or something, to continue experimentation, and continue trying to push the boundaries, I guess, of cold hardiness and stuff with the jaboticabas or banana circles, papaya circles, something like that, or just a mix of things. You could put 4 or 5 avocado trees in that section, or put maybe 5 to 7 persimmon trees there. You could put rows of squash or spinach, something, some type of green. It is swampland though. It floods often, unless they, build it up with dirt or something, they're probably not going to be able to use it year round. Nobody, unless you're like me, you're trying to do these wetlands experiments, trying to make the wetlands, instead of being trash lands, using them for something, great. I guess I'm going to talk about the man that, did all this, that caused all this to happen. Again, I'm not going to name names yet, although, you cannot be sued for libel or slander for talking about deceased people, like him, like the lawyer. But I'm going to tell you about direct experiences with me and my older brother. Growing up here, we used to play ball. We had toys, basketballs, baseballs, softballs, all kinds of stuff like that. So when we were at like my grandmother's house or something, we'd play ball. Occasionally something like that would go over the fence. That old man would be out there in his garden. He'd say, "Excuse me, Mr. X. We lost our ball over there. Can we go get it?" "No, you can't go get this ball. I'll deal with that later." "Well, can you get it for us?" "No, I'll deal with it later." He was a mean to me and my brother. He was, and this would have been before this land dispute and after. So, anytime we lost a ball or anything in that yard, and by the time it got to our parents would walk over there, talk to them, and try to get it. "I don't have that. It's not here." Supposedly he was giving all these toys to his grandkids that were stolen from us. I never had a good experience with this guy. He was just such a mean and nasty and grumpy old man. And after this land dispute, I had a crossbow, and a former mayor of this area here came to our house because we were friends with, everybody knows each other here. My grandpa was like one of his best friends at one time. They were like whispering because my dad was at my grandparents' house, and he was sharpening an axe while that guy, the Mr. X, walked out and seen my dad do that. He just said, oh my God, he's gonna chop my head off." Something like that. My dad wasn't looking at him, wasn't talking to him. He was just sharpening an axe just to, cut some logs or something, chop some logs. He called the police on my dad. Said that my dad was going to kill him and chop his damn head off. So, anyway, this former mayor was here, and he was known to he cut people and all kinds of stuff. He's been arrested for it. He's long dead too. He took my crossbow and he shot it at that guy. Supposedly this guy did squirrel shot, with like city inspectors and everything when they come to his door. He was known to be mean as can be. Some of it might have been a myth, that just that everybody was kind of told or heard about, but some of it was true. He missed the guy by like just a few inches. It's just, I don't know. Of course, I lost my arrow there, and who knows if he ever saw it, but he didn't hear the arrow hit around him. He didn't see it. He just was like walking around like nothing happened. So because we couldn't do anything to get the land back, my dad ended up planting red maple trees all around the perimeter, of his property to shade out his garden. And, you might say two wrongs don't make a right or whatever, but I think the guy died just a few years later. He never got to, I guess, stop doing his gardening before those trees got so big and were shaded out, But yeah, it started out with my parents wanting to be neighborly, not to have problems with the neighbors, giving them that land, you know, for their where their well was on, and them not reciprocating that respect and giving us the property and the adjoining property that we did purchase, you know. I don't know if yeah, I don't know what would have happened if my parents said no, we're just gonna go ahead and purchase that land. There probably would have been a lawsuit, and you know, I don't know, because you know, like I said, it was about money, and my parents did not have the money to fight it, so they would probably have that land and this back lot too, you know, and they probably would have paid a lot more money for the lot because of adjoining lot there. And instead of being out of, you know, $600, $700 with the lot price, you know, per square foot and the lawyer fees, and then maybe another $500, $600 for the little side lot, you know, they could have been just totally out, you know. So I would say if you ever decide to purchase land, adjoining lot or whatever, you probably should have it surveyed. You probably should make sure that your neighbors don't have fences on it, even though this neighbor did not put the fence up. You know, it's been there for way before their time, you know, and just make sure everything is cool, because if you don't have a lawyer, you don't have money to fight it. If the land isn't worth what a lawsuit costs, then, you know, maybe you should just forget it.